Horror movies have been scaring audiences for over a century, but some of the most terrifying films ever made came from outside Hollywood. These 8 international horror films changed everything about how we experience fear on screen. They introduced new ways to scare us, fresh visual styles, and deeper meanings that Hollywood would copy for decades. Let's count them down. Number 8 is Nosferatu from 1922. This German silent film almost disappeared forever, and the story behind it is nearly as wild as the movie itself. Director F.W. Murnau wanted to adapt Dracula, but he couldn't get the rights from Bram Stoker's estate, so he changed some names and made it anyway. Count Orlok replaced Count Dracula, and the setting moved to Germany. When Stoker's widow found out, she sued and won. The court ordered every copy of the film destroyed, but a few prints survived in other countries. And today, we can see why this movie mattered so much. Max Schreck played Count Orlok, and his performance created something genuinely unsettling. The makeup made him look like a walking corpse with rat-like features and fingers that stretched out like spider legs. Rumors even spread that Schreck might actually be a vampire, which filmmakers later turned into a movie called Shadow of the Vampire in 2000. Murnau shot the film in real locations across Germany and the Carpathian Mountains. He used a style called German Expressionism, which meant everything looked slightly wrong on purpose. Shadows stretched across walls in unnatural ways. The camera angles made normal rooms feel threatening. When Orlok climbs the stairs, his shadow reaches up the wall before we see him. That single image influenced horror directors for the next 100 years. The film connected vampires to disease and plague in ways that Stoker's novel only hinted at. Orlok brings death wherever he goes, and the connection between vampirism and epidemic became a major theme in horror. You can see this influence in Salem's Lot from 1979, and it came back even stronger during the pandemic era. Robert Eggers made a new version in 2024 that pays tribute to Murnau's shadow work and expressionist style. Nosferatu proved horror could be art. Before this, most scary movies were just carnival attractions meant to shock people for a few minutes. Murnau took German folklore and visual poetry and created something that worked on your subconscious. The fear stayed with you after the movie ended. Modern atmospheric horror, the kind that builds dread slowly instead of just jumping out at you, starts right here. Number 7 takes us to France in 1960 for Eyes Without a Face. Georges Franju directed this film during a period when French cinema was becoming more experimental and artistic. The movie tells the story of a surgeon who feels guilty after disfiguring his daughter in a car accident. He kidnaps young women and tries to transplant their faces onto hers. The plot sounds like pure exploitation, but Franju filmed it like a tragic poem. The production team molded a blank white mask directly to actress Edith Scobb's face. She had to wear it for hours during filming, and the result looks both beautiful and deeply wrong. That mask became one of the most iconic images in horror history. John Carpenter saw this film and used the idea for Michael Myers' mask in Halloween. The blank, emotionless face hiding something terrible underneath became a staple of slasher films. When Eyes Without a Face first premiered, audience members fainted during the surgery scene. Keep in mind, this was 1960, and people weren't used to seeing graphic medical procedures on screen. Some countries cut the scene entirely, but critics who could handle the content recognized something special. The cinematography was gorgeous, shot in black and white by Eugen Schuftan. The film moved between moments of extreme violence and quiet, haunting beauty. The influence spread in multiple directions. Pedro Almodóvar remade the basic concept in The Skin I Live In from 2011, keeping the themes of obsession and body modification. The movie helped establish what critics later called New French Extremity, a movement of French horror films that combined artistic cinematography with disturbing content. Films like Martyrs and Inside follow the template that Franju created here. The themes feel even more relevant now. Plastic surgery has become normalized, and people alter their appearances for social media every single day. The film asks questions about identity and ethics that we're still trying to answer. What makes you who you are? Is it your face, your body, your memories? Franju explored these ideas through horror instead of philosophy, and the genre became deeper because of it. Number 6 brings us to Italy for Suspiria in 1977. Director Dario Argento created a film that assaults your senses from the first frame to the last. The movie follows an American ballet student who enrolls in a prestigious German dance academy. Strange deaths start happening, and she realizes the school might be run by a coven of witches. But the plot almost doesn't matter because Argento cared more about creating an experience than telling a straightforward story. The visual style draws from fairy tales, particularly Snow White. Argento wanted everything to look artificial and dreamlike. Cinematographer Luciano Tovoli used velvet fabrics to sculpt the light, creating vibrant reds, blues, and greens that don't exist in nature. When characters walk through the school, the walls glow with color. Blood looks impossibly bright. The sets feel like you stepped inside a painting. The band Goblin composed the score before filming even started, and Argento played their progressive rock music at full volume on set while directing. The soundtrack pounds in your ears with drums, synthesizers, and whispers. Combined with the intense colors, Suspiria becomes overwhelming. Your eyes don't know where to look, and your ears can't escape the noise. That's exactly what Argento wanted. Critics split down the middle when it first came out. Some called it an incomprehensible mess. Others recognized it as a masterpiece that pushed horror into new territory. Over time, the positive view won out. The film currently holds a 93% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Directors like Nicholas Winding Refn cite it as a major influence on their visual style. The impact shows up clearly in modern art house horror. Ari Aster's Midsommar from 2019 uses bright colors and cult rituals in ways that directly echo Suspiria. Luca Guadagnino made a complete remake in 2018 that expanded the themes while keeping the core idea of using overwhelming sensory input to create fear. Argento proved horror didn't need darkness and shadows to be scary. Sometimes too much light, too much color, and too much sound can be even more disturbing. Number 5 jumps to Japan for Ringu from 1998. Based on a novel by Koji Suzuki, this film took Japanese ghost stories and merged them with modern technology. The plot centers on a cursed videotape. Anyone who watches it receives a phone call telling them they'll die in 7 days. Then they do. A journalist investigates after her niece becomes a victim, and she accidentally watches the tape herself. Director Hideo Nakata filmed during Japan's economic recession in the 1990s. The country was dealing with uncertainty about the future and rapid technological change. Ringu taps into those anxieties. The ghost Sadako represents old Japanese folklore meeting new media. She was murdered and thrown down a well, a traditional vengeful spirit origin story. But she comes back through television sets and VCR tapes. The scene where Sadako crawls out of the TV became instantly iconic. Her movement is jerky and wrong, like a damaged video file. Her face stays hidden behind long black hair. The film barely shows her clearly, which makes her scarier. Your imagination fills in the gaps. Nakata shot most of the movie with muted colors and static cameras, building tension through what you don't see rather than what you do. Ringu became a massive hit in Japan and spawned multiple sequels. Hollywood took notice and created The Ring in 2002, which introduced American audiences to J-horror. That remake kicked off a wave of American versions of Japanese horror films throughout the early 2000s. The Grudge, Dark Water, and Pulse all followed the same path from Japan to Hollywood. The influence goes beyond direct remakes. Films like Sinister from 2012 use cursed media as their central threat. The idea that watching something or reading something could kill you became a new horror trope. Korean horror films like The Wailing from 2016 built on the foundation Ringu established. The film showed that supernatural horror could be methodical and slow instead of relying on jump scares. The inevitability of death becomes more frightening than any monster. You can even find Sadako in video games like Dead by Daylight, proving her impact spread across multiple forms of media. Number 4 stays in Japan for Audition from 1999. Director Takashi Miike adapted this film from a novel by Ryu Murakami, and it might be the most divisive movie on this list. The story starts as a simple romance. A widower holds fake auditions to find a new wife. He becomes interested in a quiet, mysterious young woman named Asami. They start dating. Then the movie becomes something else entirely. Miike built his career making extreme V-cinema films, direct-to-video movies with small budgets and shocking content. Audition gave him a chance to work with better resources, but he kept his confrontational approach. The first hour plays like a gentle drama. Asami seems sweet and vulnerable. The widower seems like a decent guy who made a questionable decision. Then cracks start appearing in both characters. The film reverses typical gender roles in horror. Usually, women are the victims in torture scenes. Here, Asami takes complete control. The torture sequence near the end made audience members walk out of festival screenings. The movie earned its reputation as one of the most brutal films ever made. But Miike had a point to make. The widower treated women like audition pieces he could judge and select. Asami turns his objectification back on him in the most literal way possible. Eiji Shiina's performance as Asami influenced how filmmakers thought about female villains. She's not crazy or supernatural. She has motivations based on past trauma, and she carries out revenge with planning and precision. Her whispered phrase, "Kiri, Kiri, Kiri," became as memorable as any horror movie catchphrase. The film inspired the torture porn subgenre that Hostel and Saw popularized in the mid-2000s. But Audition works on a deeper level than those films. Miike critiques misogyny and male entitlement throughout. Modern horror films exploring feminist themes, like American Mary from 2012, build on what Audition started. The slow burn approach, spending most of the runtime establishing normalcy before destroying it, became a template for psychological horror. The film teaches us that the scariest monsters look like regular people until they decide to show you who they really are. Number 3 takes us to Spain for REC in 2007. Directors Jaume Balagueró and Paco Plaza made this found footage film during a period when the style was considered dead. The Blair Witch Project had come and gone, and audiences thought they'd seen everything the shaky camera technique could offer. REC proved them wrong by combining found footage with zombie horror and real-time tension. The entire movie takes place in one apartment building over one night. A reporter and her cameraman are filming a piece about firefighters when they respond to a call. An old woman is trapped in her apartment and acting violent. The situation escalates quickly. The building gets sealed by authorities, and the residents realize they're trapped inside with an infection that turns people into savage attackers. The genius of REC comes from its commitment to the found footage conceit. The camera is a character in the story. The reporter, Angela, stays professional even as everything falls apart because that's her job. The cameraman keeps filming because that's what he does. The audience sees exactly what they see, no more and no less. When the power goes out near the end and they switch to night vision, the terror becomes almost unbearable. The film cost relatively little to make, but earned strong reviews and box office returns. Critics praised its nightmarish intensity and clever use of a single location. It spawned 3 sequels, each one expanding the mythology while keeping the confined, claustrophobic feel. Hollywood remade it as Quarantine in 2008, though most fans prefer the original Spanish version. REC influenced the Paranormal Activity series and other found footage films that came after. The real-time approach, where events happen continuously without time jumps, created urgency that traditional horror editing couldn't match. The hybrid of zombie infection and quarantine themes feels especially relevant after recent pandemics. The film taps into fears of disease, government control, and being trapped with danger you can't escape. Number 2 brings us to Sweden for Let the Right One In from 2008. Director Thomas Alfredson adapted John Ajvide Lindqvist's novel, and both the author and director were determined to make a vampire film that felt real and grounded. The story follows Oscar, a bullied 12-year-old boy, who befriends Eli, who appears to be a 12-year-old girl living next door. Eli is actually a vampire who's been 12 years old for a very long time. The film was shot during Swedish winter, and the snow and cold become almost oppressive. Cinematographer Hoyte van Hoytema used natural light whenever possible, giving everything a documentary feel. The vampire attacks are quick and brutal, but the movie spends most of its time on the relationship between Oscar and Eli. They're both isolated and damaged in different ways. Oscar suffers at school every day. Eli needs blood to survive, but seems tired of the killing. Vampire stories had become stale by 2008. The Twilight series had turned vampires into romantic figures for teenagers. Let the Right One In went the opposite direction. Eli is genuinely dangerous and alien. The film doesn't romanticize vampirism. It presents it as a curse that ruins lives. The scenes where Eli's caretaker hunts victims are sad and pathetic rather than thrilling. Being a vampire or helping one is miserable work. The movie earned universal acclaim and a 98% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Hollywood remade it as Let Me In just 2 years later, which shows how quickly the industry recognized its value. But the influence goes beyond the remake. Films like The Babadook from 2014 use childhood trauma and monster metaphors in ways that Let the Right One In pioneered. The movie proves you can make horror deeply emotional without losing the scares. The Nordic style, with its focus on repressed feelings and uncomfortable silences, brought new possibilities to horror. American movies tend to be louder and more explicit. Swedish cinema finds terror in what people don't say and what they keep hidden. That subtlety influenced a whole wave of elevated horror that tries to be scary and meaningful at the same time. Let the Right One In showed that monsters can be sympathetic without losing their danger. Number 1 takes us to South Korea for Train to Busan from 2016. Director Yeon Sang-ho made this film during a boom period for Korean cinema when films like Oldboy and The Host were getting international attention. Train to Busan takes zombie horror and adds family drama, social commentary, and high-speed action. The result is a film that works as pure entertainment while also saying something about modern society. The plot is straightforward. A zombie outbreak starts in South Korea, and a train full of passengers is trying to reach Busan, where they believe they'll be safe. The main character, Seok-woo, is a fund manager who's been neglecting his daughter. The zombie attack forces him to confront his selfishness and actually protect her. Other passengers include a pregnant woman and her husband, a homeless man, high school students, and a businessman who only cares about himself. The confined setting of the train creates natural tension. When zombies break through from one car, everyone has to retreat to the next one. The film uses this structure for increasingly intense action sequences. The zombies in Train to Busan are fast and aggressive, more like the infected from 28 Days Later than the slow walkers from classic zombie films. They pile on top of each other and swarm through train cars like a wave. But what makes the film special is how it uses the zombie outbreak to explore class divisions and capitalism. The businessman character keeps sabotaging the group to save himself, and the film makes clear this selfishness reflects how the wealthy treat everyone else. The homeless man is assumed to be dangerous just because of his appearance. The corporate worker who caused the outbreak is never held accountable. These themes resonate globally, which helped make Train to Busan an international hit. The movie earned a 94% rating on Rotten Tomatoes and became one of the highest-grossing Korean films ever made. It influenced zombie films that came after by showing the genre could combine spectacle with genuine emotion. Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead from 2021 tries for similar emotional beats alongside its action. Train to Busan also helped establish Korean horror cinema as a major force. American directors started looking to Korea for fresh ideas the same way they looked to Japan in the early 2000s. The film spawned an animated prequel and a standalone sequel called Peninsula. More importantly, it proved audiences around the world were ready for non-English horror that took big swings. The success of Train to Busan opened doors for films like Parasite to find mainstream audiences. Horror has always been the genre where international films can break through because fear is universal. These 8 films changed horror by bringing new perspectives from different cultures. They introduced visual styles, story structures, and themes that Hollywood absorbed and built on. From German expressionism to Korean social commentary, foreign horror films keep pushing the genre forward. The best horror reflects the fears of its time and place, and these international masterpieces prove that terror speaks every language.